morning, everyone. I'm going to call our county board meeting to order. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, roll call, Beth, please.
Sure. Commissioner Schlangen. Here. Commissioner Heinen.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Gopinski.
Here.
Commissioner Pop.
Here.
All right, move on to approval or amendments to our agenda. Monty, anything?
Let's see, right before commission meeting updates, if we could add two things. Attendance by our county engineer potentially at the, transportation fly-in is number one. And number two is, I needed to report back to you on, potential delaying the CIP hearing by a month or so. That would be the second item. My conversation with Northland Securities.
All right,
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
motion and second to approve our amended agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, it's carried. County board meetings are broadcasted live and video recorded on YouTube. Please refrain from speaking from the audience area and come to the podium so that viewers can hear you. County board observes Robert's Rules of Order for its meetings, so please obtain the board chair's consent before addressing the county board. Public comments are generally reserved for the open forum segment or public hearings. However, public comment on other agenda items may be allowed at the discretion of the board chair. As we begin today, please turn your cell phones off or put them on vibrate. Open forum, do we have anybody here for open forum? Thank you. All right, just a quick housekeeping things here for open forum. Purpose of the open forum section of the county board meeting is to allow public input and or information to be presented to the board that does not require action. Personal attacks of any kind against another person are not allowed. Campaign type presentations are not allowed. Normal time limit is 5 minutes per speaker. Time limit may be shortened or extended at the discretion of the board chair. All input or information is to be addressed to the Board of Commissioners and not to members of the audience. Speaker handouts are public information. The county may make copies of such handouts for public if needed. And we'll ensure that these are followed. The first person I have on here is Mark Lipinski. Morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I hate to be the dead horse, but I bet you guys know what this is on. Having the north end of CSA 25 on the 2024 construction schedule virtually eliminates any opportunity for reconstruction. Is that not true?
We're listening.
Is that true, that it virtually eliminates any possibility of reconstruction by leaving it on the 2024 schedule?
No.
Commissioner Pop.
Well, not really. It just will delay it a number of years because of that, of the overlay that done. And even if we're gonna reconstruct it, we'd be about 5 years out by the time we get design and that.
Right, but if it's on the 2024 schedule, it'll be let this following spring,
Right.
and there's nothing that, it can't be changed.
Not for the current few years.
But it's currently on to be let,
Right. Yeah.
so there's no chance of it getting reconstruction.
Not in 2024. So,
Or 25 or 26, because it'll be paved in 24. So
correct,
then
I
it'll be
believe, right?
15 years out, 10 to 15.
Potentially.
So just wanted that for the record. Thank you
Okay,
for your time.
thank you. All right, Karen, Grow. Good morning.
Good morning. As he stated, my name is Karen Grow, and I am a resident of Campa Meadows, which is the property on the north side of the Foley School property. And I'm here today to ask that this board consider doing a speed study on Norman Avenue, which runs west of the school property and west of Campa Meadows, from the intersection of Norman Avenue and Penn Avenue to the city limits on the north side, which is at the intersection of Norman Avenue and 75th Street Northeast. Not only is half the distance of the road directly abutting school property, but the other half is directly abutting the housing development of Campa Meadows. Also, the roadway is next to a large church, New Life, which is currently expanding. The posted speed at the point of the city limits from the north is 45 miles an hour. which continues until just before the Norman and Penn intersection, at which time it is posted at 30 miles an hour. There is not one sign stating school zone anywhere. There is no paint on the traffic lane to inform drivers of the school zone. The roadway is a veritable racetrack for all drivers, either going north out of town or coming in southbound. I believe the speeds posted are way too high for within the city limit driving, and especially so right at a school property. I believe a possible answer to this problem would be to have a three-way stop signage at the intersection of Norman Avenue and the Fieldhouse Road. Traffic would stop from both directions. It would give a more equal advantage to all drivers trying to enter Norman Avenue. Just in case, you're all invited to sit on my patio and watch for an extended period of time, and you will see for yourself the problem that exists. I have talked with numerous neighbors, and they all share the same thought I do. Traffic needs to be slowed down before someone gets hurt. I failed to put into my notes that there is no striping to prohibit passing. It is allowed up until halfway between the corner of Fieldhouse Road and Penn Avenue. Then it's doubly striped for no passing. That's within the city limits, right next to a school zone. Someone gets hurt. The speed study is, I'm told, the first place to start.
All right, thank you. We will have this conversation with our highway engineer after our meeting today.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, that'll do it for open forum. We're gonna move into our consent agenda, items 1 through 6. Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second to approve consent agenda items 1 through 6. Is there any other discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, it's carried. Move on to Land Services Director Roxanne Ockman and Auditor Treasurer Christine Sherman. Brian, you're gonna take the reins?
I'll take the reins.
All right,
All right, good morning, Commissioners.
good morning.
So the agenda item that we have is, the CAMA tax conversion. It's not the entire package that I would like to have brought to you, but it is to sign the agreement to join the MCCC Tyler Master Services Agreement. So we just are asking to sign the participation agreement, which will allow us to move forward. We'll get on the schedule, and then to continue using Apex for our sketching. The third part of it, which is in your packet, is Data Cloud Solutions, which is our mobile application. That we have to do an agreement with them, so that is not part of this. It'll be coming at a later date. But this will at least allow us to get onto Tyler's schedule and get slotted in so that we can get rolling on this conversion.
All right, any questions for Brian, Roxanne, or Christine? This is something we already talked about, so. Any questions at all? Need a motion?
I'll move approval to enter in a contract with Tyler
Okay,
Technologies.
Second.
okay, motion and second to enter into that contract as was described and as our conversations were earlier. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, it's carried. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Roxanne, you're up. Christine, you got out early today.
Wait, as long as Christine's leaving, had a comment. I'd like to request that we have a update on the DMV for what we had in revenue from 2022 to the end of June to 2023 to the end of June.
Okay.
You could present that before our budget.
Christine, and that brought up a memory for me too, if I could please. At some point in the future, could we get an update on where we're at with aggregate tax collection?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Roxanne.
All right, good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
We have an agreement with, here, I got the wrong one here, with Tryman. So we have a master computer software license agreement that needs to be re-executed. Everybody thought there was a agreement out there that was signed. Neither party could find the executed agreement, so we worked with Tryman to get this master service agreement re-signed and re-executed. The attorney's office did review that, and their comments, Daniel Schub, he provided his comments in the in the attachment. In the attached memo. And this all came about because we were looking to add credit card services to allow for title companies, individual users to use their credit cards to purchase documents online through Landshark. And so when we went into that agreement, we found out we were missing the master agreement. Now this credit card integration, there were conversations about using this credit card service a number of years ago through authorize.net. Now, the county attorney's office had some major concerns with that agreement. Tryman has since moved to provide they'll maintain that gateway, and they'll be the merchant account with authorize.net. So they're actually holding that liability, and we're just being able to use that service. So there's no additional cost to us. That has already been funded in 2019 through the Recorder's Technology Fund. So really, we're just looking to move forward with re-executing the master service agreement, and then additionally allowing for the credit card integration work to begin.
All right, any questions for staff?
No.
Commissioner Pop, anything?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we re-execute the MasterCard computer service agreement and execute the credit card integration statement.
All right, I'll second that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, it's carried.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Roxanne.
Thanks, Roxanne.
Chris, we got to you early, 9:11?
Take your time.
Are you sure? You want me to take my time?
You've got about, 20 minutes.
Very good. All right. I think the first item is our road construction program. So, I have a presentation here that I prepared. Is it being shared on the screen? Okay, look at that. We're ready to go. All right. So our 5-year road construction plan for the years 24 through 28, 2024 through 2028. Some of the highlights. So this next 5 years represents over $43 million of construction spending. I like to think of that as infrastructure investment over the next 5 years. But of that $43 million, a little over $14.5 million is coming from our sales tax for transportation, that tax that's collected here, and we're spending it right here in Benton County. We'll be using about $5.2 million of wheelage tax, $8.4 million of federal grants. That's confirmed. As the time of printing this, only about $8.4 million of federal grants, with more hopefully on the way. And then the remainder, about $16 million, is coming from our state aid allotment that we get. One thing I do like to point out is in these bullets you'll see that there's no levy. Something that I think we're kind of proud of is that all of our road construction program for the next 5 years is using zero levy for the construction. Now, there'll be some levy, of course, for the engineering and staff time, but for actually paying the contractor payments, there's $0 of levy going towards that. I thought maybe I'd just take a couple minutes to talk about how we arrive at what projects we're going to be working on in the next 5 years. And for us as engineers, it starts by looking at data. And that data is collected for us by MnDOT's Pavement Management Division. And they have these vans, well, recently now they have pickup trucks now, but where they scan our roadways. They'll do all of our CASA routes, the 225 miles of our CASA roads, for free. And then we've asked them to rate our paved county roads for a small fee. And for me, I think that's well worth it. These vans have lasers mounted to the front. There's just a zoomed in picture of it, and in the back. And there's just a picture of it, what that looks like. So those lasers are scanning the roadway as they drive across it. And then once they get that, they compile the data and send it to us. And we learn all kinds of things that are probably not useful to anybody other than an engineer. But we learn things about the amount of cracking the road has. How much rutting does that road have? What's the depth of that rutting? What's the ride feel like? How rough is the roadway? And then we use that information and we can arrive at things that we call a surface rating. And we put together graphs such as this that shows a percentage of roads that are in poor condition based on surface rating, and how much of that, how much of that is in good or excellent condition. There's just an example of our county roads. Obviously, we have a lot less paved county roads than we do CASA, but we have about 145 miles of paved county road, 225 miles of CASA road, which is all paved. And we can also look at pavement quality index. So that doesn't necessarily consider how rough the ride is, because sometimes roads can be rough, but they're still structurally sound and still good roads. So we look at these kind of things to kind of evaluate what projects we should be working on. Now that we've been collecting this data from MnDOT for a few years now, not only are we getting the data as it is today, but we can start to see trends and start to predict how fast that road is degrading. Maybe it's, increase of heavy trucks using it, just increase in traffic using it. So we can kind of look ahead and say, okay, maybe today this road is in a fair condition, but within 5 years it's going to drop below that and be in poor condition. Therefore, we want to try to do something over the next 5 years. So those are kind of things that we use to determine what projects we want to work on in the next 5 years. We also look at, this is a bituminous decision tree, and it's kind of our thought process based on a bunch of different factors. It's basically a flow chart that kind of guides us whether we're doing a mill and overlay, or we do a deep mill and overlay, or maybe just an overlay, don't even need to mill it. And sometimes it leads us to a full depth reclamation. So just another tool that we use to suggest projects to work on in the next 5 years. I know we talked about this a lot at our work sessions, our cows, roads, based on traffic volume and width of shoulders. Actually was, mentioned today a road. And I thought this was important to put this out there for all the public to see. So this is a list of roads that have over 500 vehicles a day that are narrow and don't have wide shoulders today. In total, that's just under 46 miles. A little over 10% of our total road mileage is narrow and has what we would consider, high traffic volumes. The roads in green are ones that are in the 5-year plan that are going to get reconstructed. Things like at the top of the list here, CASA 2, from Rice out to, basically CASA 1. Another thing we look at is what's the 20-year projected traffic volume look like on that? And that's going to be pushing 10,000 vehicles a day in 20 years. That's why that's something that's a higher priority for us as engineers, that we need to reconstruct that. You can't have 10,000 vehicles a day on a road that has no shoulders. So then some of these are, we're just doing mill and overlays. There's County Road 25 as noted, a little over 500 vehicles a day. Getting an overlay, mill and overlay. But in total, we're addressing about half of those miles in the next 5 years. Not half of them are getting reconstructed, but I just wanted to point that out, that we know that there's more out there to do than what we can accomplish. We're trying our best with what we have available, but not everything's going to get reconstructed in the next 5 years that has narrow shoulders. So we have to use things like traffic volume and projected volume to determine what's a higher priority than another road. All right. Now let's go into the actual document that I'm asking the board to consider adopting today. So I apologize for being somewhat presumptuous though, but this is the document, if voted on and adopted today, that we would publish out on our county website. So it just starts off with a picture of a recent construction project replacing a bridge with a box culvert there. We mention, I just kind of put some narrative mentioning kind of our size of our system, the number of bridges that we have. Talk about the difference between CASA and county roads and how they're funded, the total miles. Then I put some highlights. I reiterate those facts that I mentioned here at the presentation about the funding amounts. I also state in there that this is a plan that's used to guide us in what we're going to be doing at a staff level, what we need to be focusing our staff time and resources on, but that it could change. Nothing is set in stone except for maybe the first year or first 2 years. So just trying to put that out there that those later years could change. And we've done a good job as a county with the board looking at this every year. It gives us an opportunity to look past year. How did our construction projects do? Did they come in under what we were estimating? Were bids higher than what we were estimating, and can we adjust our funding levels going forward? So here's the actual construction projects over the next 5 years. I break out where the funding is coming from on those projects, and the total construction spending every year. So what's also useful to me as the Public Works Director and Department Head of the Highway Department is for next year's budget. If this is approved, then even though it's not using levy, it does hit the Highway Department budget because those funds will pass through us as we disperse payments to the contractors. So next year, looking at about $8.4 million of construction spending. That's slightly down from this current year. But, you know, that kind of ebbs and flows based on the size of the projects each year. You see year 3 is going to be another big year with about $12 million anticipated. And then again, 11.3 million in year 4. And then year 5 is somewhat light at only $4.5 million. I also put in some additional projects. Once again, just trying to acknowledge that we know that there's more need out there than what this plan shows. I don't want to portray the image that we're going to take care of everything in the next 5 years. That's why, to me, I thought it was somewhat important to show that there's other projects out there that honestly we just don't have the money to. We just can't get to in the next 5 years. I list additional sales tax projects. These are projects that are all identified on the sales tax resolution. And then there's just a mix of CSAH and county roads that could use some work in the next 5 years, but there's no way we could afford it. That's another $13.5 million alone just for those projects. And then with the help of Scott Zwick, our GIS coordinator, I did put together a map showing those projects with the year listed on them and then color coded to the type of work that they're going to receive. So that's the 5-year plan, a presentation and summary of that. I'll open it up for any questions.
We were talking about Scott Zwick, and I'm thinking, if you go back to the pie chart,
Yeah.
the 19% that's in the red, if I can remember correctly, when we started doing this with MnDOT, we were huge in that red department.
Yeah, I think that's what helped lead us to identify, hey, we need some other outside funding. The state aid allotment was not keeping up with our CSAH roads.
I'm not for sure, but I was thinking it was in the upper 30s.
I think that sounds about right. Yeah. So
That's what so if you take, say we were at 35 and we pull it to 19, that's quite an improvement, and we can put a lot of that towards our sales tax money. And that's what the public wanted.
Right. Chris, if I could maybe just put you on the spot a little bit for a high overview of our discussion on CSAH 25 and how we got to where we're at, maybe.
Yeah.
What our plans are going to the future. I think it's good to get it on the record.
Sure.
Mark's here, he's heard some of it, but I think it's for one last review of why we're where we're at.
And I think for us as engineers, that pavement data that we receive is telling us that that's going to be in poor condition before the end of 5 years. So, cost effectively, we were looking at an overlay first. We need to overlay that, protect the roadway as it is now.
And if I could just interrupt you quickly, we're talking about the section of CSAH 25 between Highway 23 and Highway 95.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So what is that, 2.5 mile section and stuff. So when we look at in this chart of roads over 500 vehicles a day, as an engineer, we look at that and it's like, well, there's all these roads that have higher traffic volumes on it today than that. Let's do an overlay, protect that roadway as it is today, and knock out some of these maybe higher volume roads that need to be reconstructed as well. And maybe that's where we guided the plan towards just a mill and overlay and not reconstruction. I think it would be kind of difficult to maybe justify why did 25 get reconstructed before some of these other ones. Now, there's a lot of factors. Obviously, 2 is dependent on federal funding. We applied for a federal grant and got about $2.5 million of a federal grant. So that's kind of tied to the year that federal money is available. That's why we're doing it in that year. And the other thing, it takes a lot of time and resources to reconstruct a roadway that's narrow. We have to acquire right-of-way. We have to have the plans developed to a certain point that we know how wide the roadway is going to be. Then there's environmental considerations. We have to look at any potential wetlands along there. Can we avoid them? Do we need to mitigate them? And then just getting the environmental permits to move forward with that. Being cognizant of endangered species and things like that. That's why we say it takes 3, 4, sometimes 5 years to develop a reconstruction project.
Of course, some of the other discussion on CSAH 25 was with the solar
Yeah.
Nexera. I mean,
That's true. That brings in a big unknown, and I can give you an update on that. We're exploring the idea of mapping. County Attorney Roxanne was able to join, and our county surveyor met last week to discuss this process of mapping. So we're still considering that and exploring that to identify corridors that would potentially need additional right-of-way in the future, although we don't have the means to acquire that right-of-way today.
and I think that's also, been part of the discussion on County Road 50, that has been continuing to be moved back year after year. And a lot of that has to do with the solar project.
Yeah.
And the unknowns that are there. I mean, we basically know that Minden Township Phase 1 is gonna be a go for them, hopefully. I think they're waiting for state approval coming August, September for that.
Yeah.
And talked about potential Phase 2 going into St. George. But with CSAH 25 and County Road 50, they're right in the middle of these two projects.
That's right, and I think that's the big thing. We like to make decisions based on the best information that's available to us. And there's some information that we just don't have right now. We don't know what those future impacts of those next phases look like.
And you made a good point, and again, this is a 5-year road plan with probably the exception of the first year being somewhat in stone. Everything after that's up for
Right.
potential change.
Yeah, there's a lot
Mr.
of
Pop,
things.
did you have a comment?
No, I was just gonna say that, when you look at the projected traffic count, I mean, it makes it rough to justify, County 25 for a reconstruction. I know we have a lot of houses and a lot of people that live on that, and that's part is not in there, the number of residents on the road or something like that, which, should apply to the traffic count. And I always look at it like, what's the potential traffic on a road like that? We can go back to County 78 was at 700, and now we're probably at 12 to 1300 a day. We've moved that up, and we knew we would move that up with reconstruction. I guess I was surprised that County 2, that much traffic on there, and you hear about it all the time, but you don't really realize it.
Yeah, it's really exploded in the last 6-7 years.
And I think a lot of that had to do with, the public got used to how they travel and they use, coming off of Highway 10, it's easier to use 2 than it is to use 12 right now.
Chris, maybe you could touch base too briefly on the functional class and maybe how that maybe what's higher, what's lower, and how that helps determine your ranking here.
Yeah, you're right. Well, we haven't talked much about that. So yeah, the roads have different functional classifications, as we call it. Maybe the lowest would be a local street. Think of that more as like your neighborhood. Commonly thought of as in subdivisions. Low speeds. A lot of times there's curb and gutter. Those could be like township roads. And then we have collectors, which are designed to collect all the traffic from those local streets, so you have a little bit more increased traffic volumes. And those are even subdivided into minor collector and major collector. And why that is significant is in the federal program, even the new recent IIJA, to be eligible for federal funding, it has to be a functional classification of a major collector or above. And so not all of our county roads meet that. So there's a large portion of it. I want to say only about 25% of our roads actually meet that classification that's eligible for federal funding. And then you have minor arterials above that. Our CSAH 1 is minor arterial. I believe CSAH, right here, CSAH 2 is another minor arterial. So you're starting to see significant traffic, and a lot of times you're starting to see more freight, so more truck traffic moved along those roads. And those are high-speed roads. And so we also look at that when we're designing it. If you have something that's a minor arterial, well, even a major collector and above, those are really intended to collect or connect communities, like connect Foley to Sauk Rapids or connect Rice to Trunk Highway 25. They're not really designed to be neighborhood streets. And that comes into things like approving entrances. Where are those going to go? When you think of, you're pushing 10,000 vehicles a day driving 55 miles an hour plus, we're trying to build that to be as safe roadway as possible. The classification higher than minor arterial is principal arterial. In Benton County, we don't have any roads that are principal arterial. US Highway 10 or Trunk Highway 10, that's a principal arterial route. So then you start getting to look at multi-lane, 4-lane or divided highways, carrying a lot of traffic, a lot of freight and truck traffic as well. So a lot of times those have what you consider restricted access, meaning you can only access that roadway at an intersection or an interchange.
All right, thank you.
Can
Anything
you
else?
address the speed study a little bit?
Yeah, I guess what I was gonna suggest before we did that, maybe Karen, if you could get in touch with Chris or leave your contact information so he can reach out to you, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, we've talked. Karen was able to buy our office, I don't know, a week ago or so. So
Okay.
yeah, I do have her information right here from that visit that we had.
Perfect. Commissioner Schlangen, did you have a question?
Yes, with the CASA 25, we've had problems with the mailboxes being knocked down with the snow in the winter. And there's farm equipment that needs to use that road, and these families are really concerned just walking out to get their mail or getting in and out. And I believe more people or more bigger vehicles would probably use the road if it was wider. So you probably would see that increase, and I just don't agree with doing a little fix when a major one needs to be done and all the extra money involved. I think we need to move forward as fast as we can to try to get that done, especially with the construction coming up, and so I'm probably gonna vote no.
Commissioner Heinen, do you have a comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Chris, what was the estimation of reconstructing that road? You remember, right off the top of your head?
Well, we're sitting. It costs about $1 million a mile just for construction. You could probably add
Right
about
away and everything,
well,
so-
but about $50,000 a mile when you get into negotiations for acquisition, the surveying time to prepare a right-of-way plat and the easement documents and all that. So, what I remember is it was a $2.3 million difference between the mill and overlay and the reconstruction project.
That's where I was going, thank you. It's kinda hard to come up with that $2.5 million extra. I mean, we'd have to take projects off of our list.
Well, I
In
think,
order to do that, it would
Yes.
take us 5 years regardless to reconstruct that.
I think some of the trade-off, if I remember correctly from our committee of the whole meeting, was that we would pursue this mapping opportunity so that, we can identify potential roadway in the future. I don't know that there's been a no on the reconstruct of CASA 25 in the future.
Correct.
I think the no is that it's not next year, and so we had to do something, which is it's a no-win, because we're gonna spend some money on overlaying this thing with the
Yeah.
potential somewhere down the road of reconstructing it.
Yeah, and we talked about that. Overlays, we like to, in an ideal world, we'd like to get 15 years out of that life. Sometimes less than that. It feels like we're not using that full investment. But yeah, from an engineering standpoint, we think that the pavement condition needs something now. But so that means if we overlay it next year, we could still revisit the opportunity to reconstruct that at a later date. Even if the decision today was to reconstruct it, I'm gonna have to say it would be 5 years before we're turning a shovel of soil on that, just for project development time, environmental permitting, and everything.
Chris, I'm coming up short on the term of when you're not patching, but there's another, besides overlaying, you would put down a.
Oh, what we call a sand mix?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Is that the right terminology? I'm trying to come up with what, like you were gonna do with parking lot areas, to put a Band-Aid on potentially.
Oh, yeah.
What's the term for it? I'm sorry, I can't think of the term.
We're all
just
stumped.
like,
We're
But
all
did
stumped.
we have discussion about that Band-Aid on CASA 25 instead of an overlay?
Yeah, I think we can still have that discussion. As far as plan development, you know, whether it's a mill and overlay or just an overlay or a thin surface treatment or something, we could still have that discussion. Because right now, by adopting this, we're establishing, really what we're establishing is a budget for that project. And so if we can find a treatment that works within that budget that's adopted, yeah, we can still have those discussions. And so maybe maybe it's something lighter next year, knowing that that's not gonna get us more than 5 years or 6 years.
Well, and I guess I
whatever it
bring
is.
that up because we've already talked about the things that we don't know with the solar project, right? And so does that Band-Aid us enough into the future without a 10 to 15-year fix that you're looking at spending money on as an overlay?
Yeah.
Does it Band-Aid us enough into the future that we can have more discussions once we get more information to decide maybe we are gonna reconstruct that road? You know, realizing from the moment we decide we're gonna do it, it's 5 years out.
Yeah, well, I think so. Whatever we come up with, we'll probably have that discussion at the same time. So whatever the treatment it is on 25 that we can accomplish next year, just know that pick the appropriate one that's going to last until all the solar gets developed or approximately that time.
Okay.
I think, yeah, it's tough to say with that unknown. We don't know what that development is going to look like.
Commissioner Pinsky.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm really struggling right now because there's way too many unknowns that we've talked about with the Next Era project and phase 1 versus phase 2. We got clarification that phase 2 is going to start in a couple of years. That came right from Brittany Paxton. And with phase 2, there's a lot of checkered marks that were marked out and stuff like that that involve potentially 50 and options there. I don't feel comfortable changing our plan at this point to, you know, figure out what's gonna happen. I say we move forward with this and there's just too much out there and we've got the data that backs it, that there's only a, you know, potential of 1,000 vehicles a day on that. And, I mean, you look at all the other roads that are that have way more than that right now.
Commissioner Kapinski, would you be in agreement? I think I heard you, Chris, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this is establishing the budget for
Yes.
something being done there.
Yeah,
There's
Yes.
the potential for more discussion on what that actually is.
yeah, we can still have that discussion. So
Commissioner Pop.
Is it on the 5-year plan?
Hang on a second, Commissioner Schlangen,
for-
Commissioner Pop.
So, I mean, you look at it, it's 800,000 to resurface it. We know it's 5 years out, before we could ever do anything. That'd be that'd be the soonest thing. If we see a need, the solar project gets done and we're in year 6, year 7, I don't have a huge amount of problem with, you know, doing the overlay and eating, you know, $300,000-$400,000 because we know something has to be done to the road. It's no good this way. It's gonna get worse. It'll be shot or whatever, and we don't have the money to reconstruct it. So, I mean, sometimes you take your losses and you just move on, and that might be what we have to do with 25, going 5 or 6 years down the road.
Well, and again, it sounds like that discussion can be had yet. It's more setting the budget today.
Right.
Yep.
Would that be fair?
I would say so. That's what I'm going to interpret it as. If you adopt it today, you're saying between Highway 95 and between 95 and 23, you're giving me $337,500 to do something on that stretch of roadway.
Okay, Commissioner Schlangen?
Is there a way, I know the residents wouldn't want a gravel road there, but to get it wider, can we just have a gravel and have it on the 5-year plan to get it done? To widen out the gravel anyway, so the vehicles can get down there to do this construction or whatever, people can get around?
I hate to blame the solar development, but that's what I'll go back to. Not knowing what the impact or what that's going to look like during construction, I think maintenance would be a concern of mine. That's going to increase maintenance on a gravel roadway. And that's partly why we're looking at maybe doing an overlay. We don't know what that construction traffic is going to do. So that's a concern of ours. I mean, we could get into an agreement with NextEra to to maintain that roadway, but when we don't have direct control other than contractual control, that does concern us, that the maintenance. What if the road gets to be so potholed, Nextera's not being responsive, we're getting calls, we're being expected to go out there, it's actually Nextera's responsibility. They're being unresponsive because they're trying to develop a solar farm and they're not really interested in roads. That would be my biggest concern, I'll just say, is like if we turned it to gravel before the solar farm was completely developed, the maintenance of that gravel road would be a concern of mine. 500 vehicles a day, that's a lot of traffic. Even if the solar wasn't developing, 500 vehicles a day is a lot on a gravel road. That would be a daily maintenance task.
Well,
So,
Chris, and you don't have right of way now to widen that.
Yes.
Right.
no, and I kind of get what Commissioner Schlangen saying. Could we remove the pavement and take it down to gravel? Maybe do some. What we'd have to do is to get the width. We would have to lower the pavement or lower the roadway to get the width because of the geometry of the slopes and everything. Because well, it gets a lot more complicated than that. We don't have the wide right of way to match the roadways it is today and build that wider. We'd have to lower it essentially to fit in with the same width of the right of way.
So and that's gonna go with your assessing or getting your right of way, and you are gonna be doing that.
So I think we're exploring the option of going forward with mapping. And what mapping does, it's a lot lighter, a lot less surveying work than a full right-of-way plat. But there is some CAD work and drawing, and then it's adopted by a resolution and recorded in the recorder's office that this is our official map. And basically what that says is someday Benton County Highway Department is going to improve this roadway and and they need this width of right-of-way. And what I'm understanding what that does is if somebody wants to come and develop that and we don't have the right of way today, it opens up discussions for us to direct purchase that individually at a time. Because typically when we reconstruct a roadway, we complete a right of way plat and we notify everybody along that stretch of the roadway. It's like, hey, we're gonna come out and start talking to you about acquiring this whole right of way. A right of way map says, we don't have the means or the resources to do all that today, but as development occurs, let's have a conversation, Mr. or Mrs. Developer, and maybe we need to direct purchase your chunk of right-of-way today. Which means I'd be coming back to the board for funds to do that.
Mr. Chair, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, this originally got started when NextEra started talking about needing some right-of-way to put their collector in there, as well as their offset for their solar farms.
I think that's when the light bulb went off on me. In my head, it was like, okay, they're already identifying locations where they don't have space within their development site to put everything they need. They're wanting to come into our right of way. And that right of way is already narrow in spots. So if we need additional and they've already got stuff there, what does that conflict look like? I think if we had to buy out a solar panel, that probably kills the project as well. So it probably behooves us to get to this mapping now. If plans aren't finalized, I think we saw in phase 1, there's not much happening along 25. The big question mark is phase 2. We probably need to get going on our mapping before they start developing plans for phase 2.
Commissioner Pop?
I was just gonna say that I'm totally satisfied on how we're handling County 25 with everything that's going on and what's on, and I hear the residents' concerns about it being wider. I'm not real fond of the traffic count to move that forward to widen that road, but I think we've done everything we can do with what we know by putting an overlay on there and letting it run for 5 to 15 years, somewhere's in there.
Okay, anybody else, comments? Anything, questions, comments on the 5-year road plan?
I'm just not comfortable without getting getting the right of ways and building the road correctly. I'd like it done in the next 5 years. And wanted it on the plan.
Okay, I'm gonna call a question. So we've got the 5-year road plan in front of us.
Motion to approve the 5-year road plan.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the 5-year road plan as presented. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 4-1, Beth, you've got that? Okay. All right, thank you, Chris. We're gonna move into a professional service agreement with consultant, for final design of CASA 3 and CASA 5.
All right. Now that you have approved that, we know that we're going to move forward with reconstructing CASA 3 and CASA 5 within the city of Gilman. We've talked about this before. Gilman is still trying to secure some federal grants to replace their municipal utilities under our roadway. We're at the point now that we need to get our plans finalized. We don't have the staff available in-house due to vacancies and being busy with other construction projects to design that. So we issued a request for proposals from consultants. We did receive 5 proposals back. And we looked at multiple things. We based the score 20% on that consultant's qualifications and experience, 30% on their project understanding and ability, and I'll expand on that in a minute. 25% on their work schedule and past performance. We gave them deadlines. Does their schedule show they can meet that deadline or get it earlier? And then compare that to, we asked them to provide projects that they worked on in the past where they did or did not meet the project schedule and give us reasons why. And 25% on the total price. So we had them provide us a breakdown of the staff and the hours they're gonna work on the project and what that fee is. I should have just went in and did it in, but the project understanding and ability, why I said expand that, I learned this as a consultant and I've known this as a county highway engineer. There's a lot of good consultants out there that can give you really great projects, but sometimes as a county highway, we don't need the Cadillac of projects or need to have all the fancy features. Sometimes project understanding, do they really understand what we need to accomplish and can they provide that and not over deliver and certainly not under deliver? So that's where that project understanding and ability comes in. So of the 5 proposals, when we evaluated them, me and my assistant, Mark Lloyd, we came back with Sambatech kind of having the best score out of all those 5. And that's kind of interesting because of you commissioners know my history, but they did give us the best overall price, had the best project understanding and work schedule. And maybe I'll just add, this is their proposal that was attached to it. Some of these people, while I was with them, I supervised as well. So that gave me, I got to see some of these people work in action on other projects for other agencies. And I have a high level of confidence that they could deliver what we need on our project. So we would like to enter into a contract with Sambatech to complete the final design of CASA 3 and CASA 5 in Gilman.
All right, any questions for Chris?
Mr. Chair, so we don't know where Gilman stands this. Are we just gonna keep, the design will be good for a longer period of time. I know that we can probably use it if it takes us 5-7 years. We don't know where Gilman's going on this and what they're gonna be doing, and we're definitely not digging up that road and having Gilman come back and wanna redo it. I will not put money into a road that's gonna be dug up again. So as long as it's a long-term plan that we can use when we need to use it and not, we're not gonna get this done, I don't think, in the near future.
Chris, could you maybe address how long the plan is?
Yeah, so that's good. This is unique than a lot of our rural reconstruction projects because we're going to be working within existing road right-of-way, basically still within the same footprint of the roadway. So why that's significant is environmental permitting is a lot simpler. Environmental permitting is really, it takes so long to acquire and then that permit's only valid for so many years. We don't have that same situation here because we're not going to be disturbing new soil. We're not going to be developing land that wasn't previously developed. So that permitting requirements are a lot simpler. And I foresee this plan, if we reach a final design, end of 24 or first part of 24, end of 23, that should be good for, I'll say comfortably about 5 years. And why I say that is because the MnDOT spec book changes enough that even after 5 years, we may have to pull those plans out, dust them off, and say, okay, well now the spec says to do something different with this item, and we just may have to adjust the plans a little bit. But I feel confident that if we go ahead and complete the final design, we should be good for several years.
I think the next obvious question is gonna be, CASA 3 and 5 are on for 24 construction, and it's 2.14 million.
Yeah.
And so if we pull the reins back on that, then our discussion's gonna lead us to moving some other roads up, potentially.
Maybe. And I think we should do that in good faith with Gilman. Why we show it in 24 is because that's what Gilman's engineer was telling us. They said that helped them with their grant application to say, hey, the county's moving forward, they need the money now.
Right.
If it's not 24, do they feel confident that, is it the next year? Is it 2 years later? So I think, yeah, just in good faith, we should have those conversations with Gilman, so we just don't identify the funds for another project, and boom, all of a sudden, they get, who knows, maybe they get a direct appropriations as well, and then we don't have the money anymore.
Maybe what would be best is maybe you and I could go to one of their council meetings here coming up soon and
Yeah.
have a discussion with them.
I'd be willing to do that for sure.
Good. Commissioner Kapinski?
Mr. Chair, I think that's great that you guys would go to that, because I think we need to get our cities involved in everything we do, because if we're leaving them behind, and I don't think it's intentional, and I'm not saying that we are, but I think we need to really work hard with our cities, townships on anything we do, because if they've got something in the works, it just makes it a lot better.
I agree, and as you well know, we've had conversations with Gilman already and,
Yep.
and committed some ARPA money towards this project, and so they're in the loop. We just need to make sure we're in their loop
Yep.
Yeah,
and current here,
I agree.
so. All right, any other discussion in regards to this contract?
I'll just add, in the RFP, we did have a sample Benton County contract that had been reviewed by our attorney, Michelle. So they knew when they were submitting a proposal what was gonna be expected of them to sign, and they went ahead and signed that. So if the board wants to move forward with it, I already have the vendor signature here for, board approval. So if you're okay with that, maybe you could just add that to your motion and authorize the board chair to sign the consultant contract.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we move forward with the professional service agreement with Samatech,
Samatech, yep.
in the amount of $127,590, and have the board chair sign it today.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to approve that contract as presented and authorize the chair to sign. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Thank you, Chris. All right, I'm gonna turn it over to our Human Services Board Chair, Commissioner Heinen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. He definitely took his
Thanks,
time on
Chris.
that one.
All right, sorry.
Thanks,
Jim.
Chris. We'll now call the Human Services Board meeting to order. Approve or amend the agenda, oops, I'll give you a minute, Bob. Approve or amend the agenda. Bob, you have anything to add to the agenda? No changes?
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. What would you like to do with that one?
Approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Anything else, Bob?
I don't have anything, I'd just like to make an appearance.
Well, thanks for your appearance. Anything else from the board for Bob?
Nope.
Great. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
We'll now adjourn the Human Services Board meeting at 9:53 and turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Heinen. All right, move on to, transportation fly-in.
Yeah, I got an email from the Transportation Alliance telling me that they have their annual DC, what they call the DC fly-in, coming up in September. And of course, you know, it's, we're having some success of getting some federal resources for the CASA 29 quarter. Apparently, it's made its way into a House Appropriations bill. Got that email, I believe it was yesterday. So making some good progress there. So probably a good idea to perhaps have our county engineer go to DC and help keep that solidified and kind of and see it through to the home stretch. So that's coming up September 19th and 21st. The Transportation Alliance DC fly-in. So looking for some direction on that one.
I guess, Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion to approve to send our county engineer to the Transportation Alliance deal. I think, you know, we've been out there a couple of times, a couple of commissioners. I will be going out there on the 10th, and I know I will have conversations with something on my own dime and some of Farmers Union money. So we'll have that conversation when I'm out there as well. And I think that it would be money well spent to at least send Chris to the Transportation Alliance.
I'll second that motion. Any other discussion on sending the county engineer to the Minnesota Transportation Alliance fly-in? Commissioner?
Mr. Chair, I totally agree that our county commissioner has to go out there because I personally cannot be there and being part of this project. We
County
need to
engineer.
keep-
County engineer.
I'm sorry, county engineer. And I personally can't be out there this time. And starting this project and keeping this project going, we need somebody out there.
Kapinski.
Potentially, there will be an opportunity with the APO as well for, somebody to go out there, so
In October?
that's in October. That is just the APO that go, that is not the other, the alliance portion, so there's another good way to push it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Commissioner Schlangen?
I'm willing to go if you want a commissioner to go.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if we need to spend the money at this point in time to send the commissioner out there because I think it's moved along, through the appropriations. And I think,
Chris could cover it?
Chris can cover that pretty well.
The other point is on the APO side of things, they go out there in October, and this is a APO directed.
It is, yep.
Yeah.
So that would be a better place to send somebody from a commissioner standpoint, I believe.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
I
Heinen?
have to agree with Commissioner Kapinski on this. I'm the alternate for the APO. And this is part of an APO project. And that, at that point in time, we've done all the legwork already last year in DC. We just gotta upgrade our booklet and everything for Chris. But I think it's more important that a commissioner goes with the APO than they go this time with Chris.
I guess before we, we make the motion in a second here to send Chris, we want to probably make sure that he's available to be able to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Sending our highway engineer to the fly-in. Hearing none, all those in favor?
I,
Opposed? It's carried. Thank you, Chris. You're gonna be on a plane in a month and a half. All right, Monty, CIP hearing.
Yes, yesterday at the committee of the whole with GLT, there was a discussion about delaying the public hearing on the capital improvement plan until October, rather than September. Well, as I was thinking about, as I was gonna communicate with Jessica at Northland Security, I started thinking about the timeline of things. So I gave Evan a call about, how quickly could the CM actually put together an estimate for us. So consider this schedule. So your plan is to interview CMs on the 28th. And let's go to September. So you interview CMs on the 28th. I cannot foresee we would have an agreement with the CM in place by the first board meeting in September, which is the 5th. That does not seem likely. It seems more likely it's the 19th when you would have the agreement with the CM in place. And then they could start work on the estimate. In order to have the public hearing in October, I would need to get the publication materials to the newspaper by the 16th. I think my point is it just isn't gonna work to do a public hearing in September, in October. So I asked Jessica, okay, Jessica, if we push it ahead yet another month into November, how's that gonna work? And she said, fine. I did look at the original bonding schedule. It doesn't call for issuance until April 1st. So actually issuance of bonds, April 1st. So she saw no issue or challenge of delaying the public hearing for 2 months rather than one. And again, I just think we've got to give whoever CM you choose ample time to develop a quality estimate for you.
Did Evan have a response to that? at
Yeah,
all?
he was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, he was fine with that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was. I think he realized this here when I was talking. It's like, there's no way we could get a CM's estimate, given that you're going to interview them on August 28th. There's no way you could get it by mid-September.
Well, and as we discussed yesterday, it gives us a little more timeline on.
There's no way you can get it by mid-September, right?
Yeah.
Because again, when we publish this notice, if we were to publish this notice on the 16th, then we would need to have posted on our website the CIP, which would show the intended bond issuance. And again, it sounds like right now that's a bit in flux until we kind of know what the best estimate is.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
Commissioner
I would
Kapinski.
suggest then we plan on having your public hearing then the first meeting in November. Then we would publish the notice mid-October, post the CIP to our website mid-October. Again, public hearing tentatively first meeting in November.
And even with the 30-day option there, we're okay?
That would expire then early December then.
Yes,
yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Commissioner Kapinski?
Mr. Chair, thank you for bringing this up yesterday about postponing this and slowing down a little bit. This also gives us a little bit of time to figure out what was potentially brought up at the employee forum too, so.
Do you have a time would you wanna hear maybe, the department head's rendition of those events, maybe at your next meeting on August 14th?
I wonder if it shouldn't be at a cow.
That's what.
Yeah.
That's
August
right.
14th. Oh,
that-
14th
August
one's the cow?
14th, right,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, yes, I would.
I would.
I would
Okay.
too.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chair,
Pop?
I think it's good, the other thing that I wanna see a little more, I wanna see more concrete evidence what's gonna happen to our plans for this building, cause I really don't believe that if we don't have a plan, it's gonna be a hard sell.
Okay. Anything else?
It just gives us it gives us a whole nother month to figure a lot of things out.
Yeah.
Nothing else, Monty? Yes, sir. Nothing else, okay. Any comments by commissioners? Commissioner meeting updates, anybody like to start?
I can go. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Commissioner Heinen?
Now, everybody wants to start this.
I gotta get into my calendar, sorry. So the only thing I had was cows, 4 cows, and BEP. That's all I had.
Okay, Commissioner Schlangen?
The cows, I had, Central Minnesota Council on Aging, and with finances with that, the cost of everything's going up, so they have to increase meals and increase here and there, but they have the funds to cover it, so
Okay, anything else?
that was it.
All right. Commissioner Pop?
Had a couple of things. One is that the good news I bring is from the library. We're gonna be about a $17,000 decrease in our requests this year. Part of it is that we took a little bit of reserves, not a lot, and we had some needs from a couple of counties that grew with the census that they wanted to be at 0, and so them wanting to be at 0 actually benefited us to the tune of about $4,000 in order to get Wright County's 0 increase in levy because of the formula. So that benefits Benton County because it's usage, population, tax capacity, all that other stuff. So that took us down, I mean, when we were doing the budget, the deal was, well, Benton County didn't request that Wright County become 0, and look who's benefiting. Benton County we got the biggest benefit out of Wright County's not wanting to pay more than what they did last year. And the other part that we're seeing in the budget is we're running a pretty sizable surplus this year, which will be moved to the 2025 budget. So I'm anticipating that maybe even 2025 can be a decrease again, depending on how we'll spend. We'll hear more of that from Karen, but we've had some, they got more library money came through this legislator. And we have some open staff positions, and we're just not spending as much money as they did. We got to credit Commissioner Wincher as we went out and bought a couple new vehicles, and we decreased our funding to support these vehicles. We were just spending tons of money on fixing. They were always broke down, and they put a lot of miles on them. And so we purchased a couple new vehicles, so that part has gone down, and it was in the budget prior to, we just couldn't get them prior to that, so that helped. So there's a lot of things that helped. We did have a huge attendance at the library last month. We could have went on for probably 2.5 hours on open forum. I'm probably not real popular because I have 2 minutes per person, 10 minutes max, and we had nearly 20 people signed up for open forum. And I allowed 6 people to speak, and the rest of them could send emails or something because we had a large agenda and we were not going there. And a lot of it had to do with the book and the LBGQs and stuff like that. So it's getting to be a very challenging board to sit on, and I've heard other commissioners and other people say that if this doesn't change, they're not interested in being on the board. And so I don't know where that's going.
Who's chairing next year?
We don't know for sure yet.
Okay.
You are,
determined.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm done now. I got my 2 years left, and Karen checked out the statute, and the statute says I can only do 2 years, so.
Thanks for the clarification on why you're having that
Yeah.
huge surplus. I'm actually glad to hear you're having a huge surplus on our benefit.
Yeah, I think, you gotta get, when Karen comes to present the budget, you gotta give her credit. She's running a pretty tight ship.
That's good.
And plus she's increased services, substantially across the 6 counties. So, and I think all counties are happy that we're not seeing, nobody's having an increase this year.
That's good.
And then we had I had a BEP loan committee, and that's a lot of confidential stuff, we're trying to our revolving loan, everybody's on target, nobody's late with any payments or anything like that, so I think that's pretty good. And then we had our BEP quarterly meeting, our board meeting after our quarterly meeting, and, we got some projects in there that, are being on hold. When you couple them with what we're trying to do, I'm a little concerned about where our cost is gonna come in, because a couple of these came in because the substantial cost of construction was a lot higher than they anticipated. And some of these were started in, earlier this year, and they've put them on hold because, they can't make it work with the cost of construction. And some of them feel that the cost of construction is gonna come down in, 2024, 2025, because there's not gonna be the work out there and there's not gonna be as many things going on. So I think that part is good. And that was all that I had.
Okay, Commissioner Pinsky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, as quick as that 17,000 came to us, I'll be glad to be taking it back. So we do got a board that is going to be increasing our contribution, but I'll have more on that at our next meeting. That increase, though, I think the board will be very happy with, so.
You're not gonna burn it all up?
Huh?
You're not gonna burn it all up?
It's not gonna be burnt all up, but in the end, it's probably gonna save us a lot of money.
Okay.
A lot. So, with that, I had the ECB meeting, in person in St. Cloud. That's the Radio Services Board. If you ever wanna fall asleep, please go there. With that said, one of the things that came up was they were talking about in-person versus, Zoom meetings, and their legal view of these Zoom meetings, as long as there is a place for the public to attend that meeting, it does not have to be from your house or anything like that, or wherever the commissioners are at. You have to provide one meeting spot for the public to be able to go to the meeting.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sure.
So it doesn't have to be like, say I'm on vacation and I can have it from where my hotel room or whatever. It doesn't have to be in that hotel room. It just has to be, like it could be in the lobby.
It could be in the lobby, it could be anywhere, because you're giving the public a place to come, whether there's one person there and 15
Other
Zoom in. There's a place for the public to come.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is.
That's a pretty good take, and I think in my opinion, I think that could save counties a lot of money, and I think the state needs to look at that for legislators as well.
Is that a recommendation or is that it's a law, right?
According to what they're thinking, it's a legal view, but more to come.
So I do know, talking to Sherburne County, that, they have one commissioner that spends a fair amount of time in Florida, and he did his commissioner meetings. They do have rules on how many in a row he could be gone, but he attends through Zoom. So,
All right, anything else, Commissioner
Nope.
Pinsky? All right, I'll make this short and sweet also. As long as Mark's here, I just want to give you a shout out and thank you for your input on the 5-year road plan. It means a lot to me to come in and listen to the discussion. And even though things may not be the way you and or your neighbors wanted it today, I think it was important that you came in and heard the discussion and you were involved in it and in what happened, so I appreciate that. So thank you for your time coming in.
Yeah, thanks for listening. I mean, it didn't go the way I wanted, but, I'm part of the process.
All right.
And he's been along for the cows and everything.
Yes, so
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. I was able to attend the Soil and Water Conservation District meeting the monthly meeting last week, and Michelle did attend first thing on the agenda that morning and had discussions with the JPE item over the One Water, One Plan. And it kinda sounds like their board is on with our board and pursuing that route, so
Okay.
we should be in good shape there. Planning Commission meeting last week, we had one item, the Letner Pit, up on the county line, was renewed, for a 20-year interim use permit with a 5-year administrative check. So that was good. That's one of the larger pits in our county. And then, of course, our GLT and public, health cow yesterday, so. Commissioner Heinen?
Is that normal for a 20-year permit?
So we've changed that now to a 20-year permit.
Okay, it was
With
15?
a 5-year administrative review. So staff can contact the gravel mine and review things with them on a 5-year instead of them having to come in at the planning commission level and ask for a permit to be renewed. So unless there's an issue, staff and administrative one would just continue on with it, but it would come
Thanks.
before us again. Anything else? Any other comments? All right, we're adjourned at 10:10.
We got a second, please.
I'm sorry, set committee of the whole.
Okay, yeah, we got a bunch.
Thank you.
Okay.
We got no room in August for a bunch.
No, we don't.
Sorry.
Got ahead of myself, thank you.
August 14th is your next committee of the whole with GLT Architects, August 14th at 8:30. You also agreed to have construction manager interviews on August 28th at 8:30. So roughly 8:30 to noon, August 28th would be the construction manager interviews. Let's see, what else do we have here?
Did he say 8?
30.
Christian Sheeta, our emergency management director, invites you to attend what's described as an EOC 101 virtual seminar. You have two choices, Thursday, August 24th or Tuesday, August 29th. Did Kristen, I understood she was gonna contact you all directly about this.
I got an email.
I got an email.
I got an
Right.
email.
So if you're inclined to attend, could you just please reply to her? We'll go ahead and list these both on the committee of the whole calendar, August 24th, August 29th, 1 to 2:30 each day. And again, that's apparently that's an online form of training.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it both days or
It's one or the other.
one or the other?
Yeah, you can choose one or the other,
Okay.
whatever works best for you. So please, if you could just respond to Kristen.
And if I recall in the email, they were going to record it also, so if those dates
Okay.
didn't work, you
Yep.
could go back.
That's right. All right. We have a little bit of a clarification on the tour of practices. That begins at 9 a.m. on September 8th. I know it's a bit early, but the folks at SWC are asking for our SVPs on that. So perhaps we could get a sense of who plans to attend the tour of practices on September 8th. It's from 9 to 2 p.m. that day.
I will.
Okay? Commissioner Pop, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Slungen, okay?
I'm a maybe at this point.
A maybe. Well, we can go ahead and register you just in case then.
Yeah,
Okay.
same thing.
Yeah. And I guess as we get closer, we'll check back in and we can cancel some if necessary. It's usually for lunch planning, I think just space planning on the bus too. Alrighty. Let's see, what is the next one?
There's
This is a
another
bit
one.
of an after the fact. This is the AMC new county government 201 training that occurred on,
It's gonna occur
Coming
tomorrow.
Thursday.
Yeah.
excuse me, it's not after the fact.
Tomorrow, I believe, the third.
It's Thursday the
It's
3rd.
Thursday, okay.
Thursday the 3rd. Today's Tuesday.
Thursday, yeah.
This email
Wanna get
has no
Wednesday out of the
reference
way.
to the time.
It's at.
Oh, I'm sorry, there it
9
is.
o'clock.
August 3rd, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Park Event Center in Wake Park. That's at new
Yeah.
Convention Center in Wake Park. I'm just curious, who all has, I know
I'm
Commissioner
registered.
Johnson is gonna attend. Was there anyone else that could or wanted to? Okay, all right,
You can report back.
almost done,
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Just like to hear it. See it.
almost done.
There. Julie Ring reaching out for more attendance.
Almost done. You're invited to the GSDC mid-year meeting, Thursday, August 17th, 4 to 6 p.m., Stearns County History Museum. That's Thursday, August 17th, 4 to 6, Stearns History Museum. And they do request registrations. Is anyone inclined to give us a show of hands at this moment? If you want to think about it, Commissioner Slungen is a yes. if you wanna
Times
think
again, I'm
about
sorry, the time again?
4 to 6,
Thank you.
4 to 6,
And that's where?
We'll get to the
Stearns
first part
County
anyway.
History Museum.
Stearns History Museum.
Yeah.
Anyone else at this point? If you decide later to attend, just please contact Beth and she can get you registered. Thankfully, Mr. Chair, that's it.
You sure?
Not really.
All right, I'll move
Approve the cows.
Okay, I'll second it. Motion is second to approve the cows as presented. All those in favor?
I,
Opposed, it's carried. All right, now we are adjourned at 10:15.
nope, that's fine. I was just gonna say happy birthday.
Oh, yeah, well, we still can.
And if you could make the note to yourself, Beth, maybe just to check with the two folks that are maybe,
Let
and
'em-
maybe, a couple weeks out, just check with them again, please, and see, that way we can cancel.
We'll let Monty shut the recording off and